In 1747, a map was drawn that should not exist. It showed coastlines that were not officially discovered until 50 years later. It showed geographic detail that required either satellite-level surveying or access to records that history says were never made. The moment researchers began studying it seriously, it disappeared from public archives. It resurfaced once briefly in a private collection in Vienna. Then it was gone again. This video is about what that map showed, who made it, and why the people in power at the time needed it to vanish. By the end, you will understand why this is not just a story about a map. It is a story about who controls what we are allowed to know. To understand why this map matters, you need to understand how cartography worked in the 18th century. Maps were not just navigation tools, they were instruments of power. Empires that controlled accurate maps controlled trade routes, military strategy, and colonial expansion. Accurate geographic knowledge was classified. It was treated like a state secret. In 1747, the dominant European powers, Britain, France, Portugal, and Spain, each had cartographic bureaus. These bureaus held the most accurate geographic records in the world. Access was restricted. Publication required royal approval. Maps that revealed too much about uncolonized territories were suppressed, sometimes violently. Into this world came a document that broke every rule of what should have been possible to produce at that time. Before I show you what the map contained, I want to ask you something. If you had drawn a map in 1747 that showed coastlines no European had officially reached, what do you think would have happened to you? Drop your answer in the comments, because what actually happened to the people connected to this document is darker than most people expect. The map in question surfaced in the historical record in a French cartographic archive. Its origin was listed simply as unknown. No cartographer named, no commission recorded, no explanation of how the geographic data was obtained. That alone was enough to make serious researchers take notice. In the 18th century, maps without provenance were either stolen or suppressed. Nothing else explained the absence of a name. If this is already raising questions you did not expect to be asking today, you are going to want to stay for what comes next. Hit subscribe. There is a lot more where this came from. Researchers who studied the map found three features that could not be explained by the surveying technology of 1747. First, it showed the southern coastline of a landmass in the South Atlantic with a level of accuracy that matched modern satellite surveys to within a few miles. The official European discovery of that coastline came decades later. Second, the interior geographic details included river systems and elevation patterns that were not formally documented until the 19th century expeditions. Someone had been there, and they had taken measurements. Third, and most strangely, sections of the map were deliberately obscured. Not damaged by age, deliberately covered. As if whoever finished the document decided that certain information should not travel with it. Stay with me, because the explanation most historians reach for does not survive contact with the evidence. And the alternative is considerably more uncomfortable. The mainstream response to maps like this is usually the same. Exaggeration, composite error, a cartographer who assembled fragments from multiple sources and produced something that looks more accurate than it actually is. That explanation collapses here for one specific reason. The errors in the map are not random. Random composite errors produce random inaccuracies. The errors in this map cluster in exactly one region, the deliberately obscured section. Everything else is accurate. That pattern does not happen by accident, which means whoever made this map was not guessing, they were editing. And the question of what they chose to remove is the most important question in this entire story. There are three serious theories about the origin of this map. None of them come from fringe researchers. All three come from historians and cartographers with institutional affiliations. The first theory is pre-colonial contact, the idea that maritime civilizations, possibly Polynesian, possibly from the Arab trade networks of the Indian Ocean, had mapped these coastlines centuries before European contact. We have documented evidence that both groups had the navigational capability. We have physical evidence of pre-Columbian contact in genetic data and in crop dispersal patterns. What we do not have is the maps. If those maps existed and were later incorporated into European cartographic archives without attribution, a document like this one is exactly what you would expect to find. Here is the question I want you to sit with. Two possibilities. Theory A. This map was assembled from stolen or unattributed pre-colonial surveys, and the people who held it buried the source to protect their monopoly on geographic knowledge. Theory B. The obscured section contains something that was considered too dangerous to circulate, and we do not yet know what it shows. Comment A or B. I will read every single one. The second theory involves the cartographic archives of the Jesuit order. Between the 16th and 18th centuries, Jesuit missionaries operated in regions that no other European institution reached. They were disciplined record keepers. Their geographic observations were detailed and systematic. When the Jesuits were expelled from Portugal and Spain in the 1750s and 1760s, their archives were seized. Most of what was seized has never been fully catalogued. Historians who have accessed partial inventories report geographic records that do not match the official timeline of exploration. The third theory is the most direct, that this map was produced inside one of the Royal Cartographic Bureaus and deliberately stripped of its provenance before being allowed to circulate. That it was a controlled leak, a way of sharing geographic intelligence without officially acknowledging what it contained. All three theories agree on one thing: someone knew more than the official record admits, and someone made a deliberate decision to keep that knowledge contained. Remember what I said at the start: a map that should not exist, coastlines documented before they were officially reached, an interior deliberately obscured. Here is why that still matters today. The 18th century cartographic archives of three major European powers have never been fully digitized or publicly released. Researchers who have requested access to specific collections have been told the documents are in conservation, or that access requires institutional approval that is never granted. That is not conspiracy, that is documented. The requests are on record, the denials are on record. What the 1747 map tells us is not that history was wrong. It tells us that history was managed, that the people who controlled geographic knowledge in the 18th century made deliberate choices about what the rest of the world was allowed to see. And those archives are still closed. Next week, another story that rewrites what we thought we knew about one of the most documented events in history. Subscribe so you do not miss it. See you next week.